Hey, what's shaking, everybody? This is your host, Dave Germain. Welcome to the Disjointed podcast. This is a reaction episode or a little video that I'm doing. Or if you're just listening to on Spreaker or iHeartRadio or Spotify or wherever you're listening to this podcast, I appreciate you tuning in. I am going to do something that I usually don't like doing, and that's I'm going to do something kind of trendy, which is a reaction or review video. If you're looking for scenes or plot details over what I'm going to be talking about today, I don't really have that. This is just my first attempt at it. And I wanted to talk about, I'll tell you what I didn't want to talk about. I didn't want to talk about Try That in a Small Town, which that is flooding my YouTube feed, and everybody is pissed off about that. Well, it's mostly mostly the people I see that really hate it are usually Caucasian. That's also on my Facebook feeds and stuff. I really don't have that big of opinion about it, because if I was going to say, as an artist, that a song or a piece of art, or whether it's music, whether I like it or not, shouldn't be out there, then I feel like I would be betraying who I am as an artist, because sometimes you got to say the wrong thing and you get to the right point. There's a lot of talk about that stuff. All I know is that you could talk about that song till you're blue in the face, and it's probably not going to change a damn thing. So I thought, let's do something that's not as controversial. So let's talk about Barbie, eh? All right. So I was planning on doing something about this for the Barbie movie, because I have been. First of all, I'll just tell you right now that I was really, really looking forward to this film. It was for about a month or so now when I saw one of the trailers for it. I'm like, wow, the one that says if you hate Barbie or if you love Barbie, this movie's for you. If you hated Barbie, this movie's for you. And I'm like, oh, that's really interesting. And it seemed very stylized, and it seemed like an interesting piece of. Well, let's put it this way: it didn't seem like a cash grab for just a normal for an old piece of property. Because let's be honest, man, when it comes to like anything that was popular Generation X or older, that is a very trendy thing to do now, is like, hey, let's make a movie about it, and let's not pay attention to the source material and just start it off for a whole new thing. And I was wondering if they were going to do the same thing with the Barbie movie, and I don't think that's what they did. So if you're looking for, as far as like plot details and stuff, I'm just going to give my opinions on it. I'm not going to give you the big whole synopsis. I'll talk about a couple of things in here that have to do with the plot, but folks will be like, "Hey, you need to do a spoiler warning." Like it's a movie about Barbies. All right, there's nothing that's going to be that shocking about it. And so let's get into it. All right, I did not hate this movie. Why am I starting off like that? Is because I've seen a couple of reviews so far, and it's usually by dudes who kind of look like me. Let's be honest, they're kind of doughy like me. They're like, I think I'm attractive, but I'm not Ryan Gosling attractive. I know that. I have a different type of hotness. Thank you very much. I know that. I own it. And uh, I see a lot of guys who are way uglier than me online shitting on this film because they're like, oh, it's a fucking anti-man, smash the patriarchy stuff. And there is some elements of that, but you really, like, when I heard that, I'm like, man, I hope this isn't just going to be like a 2-hour movie and why I'm horrible because I was born a man. And that's not what the movie is. So if you're wondering if your girlfriend or your wife or even your boyfriend is wants to drag you to this film and stuff, I think there's something in there, especially for older people, to really enjoy. Comedy wise, there was a couple of parts in there that I really, really laughed that I thought was pretty funny. I might have been the only person in the movie theater that thought it was funny, because I didn't hear a bunch of other people laughing. But that being said, if you're a parent and you want to take your kids to this, I don't think they're going to really appreciate, like, this movie was definitely made for adults. Not to say that there's a bunch of like sexual humor and stuff in there. There isn't. There's a little bit, but not a lot. The thing is the concepts, what they're trying to get across, and the points they're trying to make are pretty intellectual. Like, this is a very artsy film disguised as a commercial film, if I could throw that out there. So, I have some couple of notes in here, so I'm going to try not to bounce around a little bit. So let me start off with the things that I really liked about this film. I think the performances were great. Okay, Margot Robbie, she's amazing. That's not a surprise there. I think everything that she does, for the most part, it kind of knocks it out of the park. Every film that I've seen her do, the next one is always just a little bit better, regardless of how serious or how comical the character is. Uh, One of my favorite scenes of Suicide Squad 2 was where she's playing Harley Quinn, of course, and she had just murdered somebody, and she's having this just psychotic conversation. Like, it's really weird because Harley Quinn is a character that gets put on a lot of like lunchboxes and posters, and is kind of like this weird icon for a lot of young girls. Because she's empowered and stuff, and keep granted in mind I did not see the Birds of Prey movie, so but in that scene, that she does a really good job of reminding the audience that no, that is a psychopath, and she has no problem with ending somebody's life. And I'm like, oh, that's really, really good. I think one of the things that's so awesome about her work is that she can convey so much emotion and thought, and even the thought process. As far as, by the way, I'm gonna fucking nerd out here theater wise. So she, there's one thing of doing a scene. There's also a whole other skill of getting what it is you're trying to convey to go through that camera, right? And not even just go through that camera, but for also to come out the other end into the screen and into the hearts and minds of the people who are watching it. That's not always an easy thing to do. You would think it would be like, hey, I'm just going to say this line and do this thing, and everybody will be able to get it. So props to not just the writing, but the directing. Like I said, great performance. And Margot Robbie is one of those performers, one of those actors who she doesn't even have to have dialogue in order to really, really reach the audience. Anybody who's seen Once Upon a Time in Hollywood knows what I'm talking about. And so props to her. Ryan Gosling really knocked it out of the park on this one. I think he's great as Ken. There is the whole character of the Ken, of not just of it's kind of confusing because when I say Ken, well, when he's having an argument with other Ken, like all of the Ken, there's nothing but Kens as far as like the male dolls, and there's one male doll that isn't a Ken, and that's played by Michael Cera. And I don't even know. I gotta Google who Alan was and why there was only one of him, and like he just feels like completely left out. He's the only one like him, and it's funny. But Ryan Gosling, I think he's great as Ken. He brings a sense of vulnerability in his search to try to find who he is. And this is something that's really important to remember for the guys who think this is going to be like some type of anti-man film. They set out, tell you what the parameters of what reality is in Barbie from the very beginning, right? They don't hide anything. They said like Barbie world, Barbie land is a world specifically for the Barbies. The Barbies are there to help inspire young girls to believe that they could be whoever they want, and Kens are there for the Barbies. So the Kens really like. There's the voiceover is done by Helen Mirren, it's Helen Mirren. She's great, and they say it right from the beginning, where like Barbie always is having her best day, and she's always having a great day. Ken only has a good day if Barbie notices him. And that kind of like when I wasn't expecting that, I was like, man, that reminds me of me in my 20s basically. So it's definitely it's like kind of a codependent relationship. Well, actually it's one-way codependent really. Ken's whole life is about wanting Barbie to care for him the way that he cares for her. And that is an important point in the story, but that's not the whole entire story. So, if you guys don't know, something's going wrong with Barbie, where like her heels or her feet are going flat, and he's getting these weird thoughts because the girls, who's playing with that Barbie in the real world, affects the Barbie in Barbie Land. So they travel to the real world, and Ken tags along with it because he can't be without Barbie. And in Barbie world, all of the top positions, like the Supreme Court, the president, they're all Barbies, right? And everything that Barbie does is absolutely great, and Kens are there to cheer them on. So the men don't really have any autonomy who they are as a person. They're just the sidekick, basically. So like Ryan Gosling's Ken, the only thing he knows how to do is be at the beach. That's they say, oh, I beach really well or something. And there's a couple of jokes about that, but it's like he can't surf, he can't swim, he can't be a lifeguard, he can't do anything. All he can do is look good at the beach, right? So when they go into the real world now, Ken is in a world where, which is as far as most of like industry and companies and stuff, and a lot of even construction. Like in Barbie world, the women do all the construction. They're independent, they're strong and stuff. So when he goes to the real world and sees that there are guys that their whole lives are not revolved around Barbie the way that his is, he is like, holy crap, I could feel strong, I could feel empowered. So the joke is he learns about the patriarchy, and when he goes back to Barbie Land, he basically rallies all the Ken so that way they're in charge of stuff. And it's not. What I thought was really funny about it is that I'm sure there's some girls like, you think that's funny? Yes, I think it's hilarious. And is that all of the Kens basically act like 12-year-old boys for the most part. There's very kind of there's not like this malicious like how dare you do this to me and stuff. It kind of keeps it lighthearted about it, and it's really tricky. Like it's to kind of step back and stuff as far as the synopsis of the story that Gosling, the way that he's experiencing, like it's weird. It's the Barbie's kind of reacting to the stuff that's going on with the story. Ken's character is kind of driving the story forward, which is really funny because it's like the irony is not lost on me that as a film that's supposed to be very empowering for young girls and stuff, which it is. But a lot of that depends on the male character. So he's got a great dance number. He's very funny. Most of the jokes and the funny things that come, it usually comes from something that Ken said or did. And it's not this thing where he's like this, whining, I was going to quote Loki, mewling Quim. He's not this weak guy. He's just very, very unsure of himself because he doesn't, like I said, it's his whole life depends on whether or not she notices him. And so that's kind of a part of the story. So I'll get back to a little bit of that more. It's weird. It's like I think like I'm just now coming to the Ryan Gosling party, to be quite honest with you. And I don't know if this is me personally. If everybody loves something or loves an actor or loves a band or loves a movie or anything that they're really into, chances are I'm not going to want to listen to it. I will wait until everybody stops talking about that thing before I actually get into it. It's kind of like I was really into Dairy Girls when it came out on Netflix, and more on that later. But I imagine if that show got any more popular than it did, there's a good chance I'm not going to want to watch it anymore. Why? Because it's called being a Gen X cynical asshole. All right? Okay. So I think he's really good at comedy. I think The Good Guys is one of the funniest movies that I've seen him in. That's one with Russell Crowe. And I think he's going to do more comedy as the older he gets. Like, he's kind of got that hot guy curse where they only want to keep him in this one particular type of role. Yeah, he's kind of witty, but we're not going to do anything too funny because, if comedy's kind of weird, you have to not be traditionally attractive in order for people to think that you're really funny, which is not true. But I've seen it happen in open mics and other comedy scenes and stuff where if a guy is really, really attractive or let's say very, very physically fit, he tries to do stand-up comedy, we're like, what the fuck are you doing here? This is supposed to be for outcasts like us. You're too pretty, go do something else, which is total bullshit. But either way, he did a great job. Supporting cast is vast, which it makes sense and it doesn't. All right, it makes sense because it's not just like Margot Robbie plays stereotypical Barbie. That's literally her name. There's President Barbie. There's all these different versions of Barbie, so you're going to want to have a very, very wide range of cast members or of a cast and different types of gals. So in other words, you're not going to have all the Barbies aren't going to be the same height. They're not going to be like showgirls, you know what I mean, or Vegas showgirls or rock. I was going to say Rockettes, where they have to be the same height, the same body, and all that other stuff. That's not what they're doing here. And so that being said, of course, they're going to have the more actresses or actors that they have to play those parts, the better. Let's see, America Ferrera, she plays one of the bigger supporting cast members. She does great. I've never seen her do anything that wasn't great. I haven't seen everything that she's done, but all the Barbies for the most part they have their moment, which I think is pretty funny. Everybody has a chance to be funny. There's nobody that just walks in there and goes, "Hey, how's it going? I'm Barbie," and then walks off. I will say, because I mentioned Dairy Girls, that I wish there was a bit more Nicola Coughlan in there. That's because I'm a big fan of hers, to the point where I think I have a problem. All right, I don't know what it is. Irish lads, lads and laddies, especially Irish women. I don't know what it is about your accent, but it's my brain checks out as soon as they start talking. I'm like, So she's in for like one moment, has two lines, and I'm like, that was worth the price of admission. Visually, the film's amazing. The contrast, the stylized version of how Barbie World looks versus versus the way that I cough into the mic. Sorry, let me have a sip of tea here. Okay. The contrast between Barbie World and the colors and the pastels and everything versus the real world, obviously, there's going to be a stark contrast in there, but it works out pretty well. The editing I thought was really good. The pacing of the film was pretty good. There's never a part of the film that I thought that was like, God damn it, when is the next part? When is this thing going to move on? It doesn't. It's an interesting story. They do a pretty good job of sliding the fourth wall, or just as far as maybe it's not even fair to call it the fourth wall, because there are some times where they're talking, where like Helen Mirren will talk directly to the audience. Well, she's doing a voiceover, but it's really interesting where sometimes they're making a point about not just between Barbie world or the real world in the film, but the actual world that we're all existing in. So it's kind of the line of reality slides back and forth quite a bit, and I think that just goes to a really good script, So props to them on that. Let's see. Okay, so the other part of this, I didn't want to say the things that I didn't like. There were some things that I thought they just kind of made me go, eh. There was not, like I said, there was nothing about this film that I really hated. And I think I think for some of the reviews that I've seen where they've kind of trashed this film, I feel bad because I think you guys have kind of missed the point about it. I think, granted, I don't know what your guys' days are like. If I know this because I've spent a lot of time on YouTube lately, that if I spent all this time about all these films that I'm like, oh, the feminists are freaking hate us and all this other stuff and all this really negativity, maybe I might see the film the same way that you do, but I try to really keep a lot of that stuff out of my ears. It's like that type of clickbait type of videos and stuff that's only going to be only design that's going to keep you angry and engaged. It's like eating junk food all the time and expect that you're going to go run a marathon. It's just not going to happen. You're feeding garbage into your heart and soul. So I'm not saying ignore all that stuff. I'm just saying is that maybe sometimes look at a video of some kittens or some puppies or a cartoon that you used to watch when you were a kid or something that's not going to bum the shit out of you. I'm a Gen Xer, so if I try to watch music videos, I have to watch grunge videos, which is definitely going to bum the shit out of me. You know what I mean? So you guys, the younger guys, you have an opportunity to, I don't know, listen to NSYNC or some shit. All right. So, okay, here's some of the things I wish they kind of would have done differently, but these things do kind of make sense. I'm not sure if it was the strongest choice. One-dimensional characters when it comes to the Kens, okay, which they're dolls. They're not actual people. I know that seems kind of mean to say, but no, literally, the story is that everybody in Barbie world knows that they're a doll. They don't think that they're actual people, right? So the one-dimensional characters when it comes to the Kens, this kind of makes sense as long as you remember that all the Kens are toys, much like Barbies. They aren't real people. I already just said that. When I see reviews online that this is some type of anti-man film, I think they're missing the point of what the film is trying to convey. They even flat out say to the audience in a voiceover by Helen Mirren, I mentioned this before, that Ken only has a good day when Barbie notices him. And like I said, that was kind of weird for me. Anyways, the Barbies exist to help girls that they be anything they want. The Kens are just an extension of Barbies and have no identity without them. So I don't know if that was just kind of a way of them like, this is what it's like is this what girls feel like growing up or in society? I don't know because contrary to what my cousin Jim says, I'm not a woman, and I don't know what they're feeling. So this is something I was talking about with my wife, and yeah, it's in obviously there's differences of. Which I think I liked the film a little bit more than she did. She didn't hate it either, but there was a couple parts she didn't care for. So, anyways, um, I wonder if this was a way just to kind of like show audience or what men what it feels like to be an extension of somebody else. That maybe that is if that's the case, it kind of works. So I don't know if there was a better way to do that, but that's what I think what it was. It made me feel uncomfortable and a little upset. Not to the point that I'm like, how dare they do this? I'm just saying is that that's as I was watching this, I'm like, oh, that kind of sucks. Um, so see extension of that. I don't think. Yeah, I don't think this is the way the writers think of men. At least I hope they don't. But it fits in the world of which we're looking into. In the real, oh, there's the other thing as far as one dimensional or like the tropes. In the real world, most of the men seem like tropes of men by a writer who doesn't really hang out with men that don't work in Hollywood. That's not a dog whistle. I'm saying is when you hang around with a bunch of artsy guys and actors and stuff like that versus the guys who don't work anywhere near a theater, who don't work anywhere in music or any type of entertainment, just guys who work like at your grocery store and stuff, the guys that don't have any artistic aspiration at all, they're just dudes, they're just fathers or whatever. That's a different type of guy. Okay. Not better, not worse, just different. Okay. So there's a scene which I understand why it went the way that it did because they needed to get to the next scene where like they're rollerblading on the beach, and everybody's kind of laughing at them because they're wearing this these bright fluorescent like outfits that seem like straight out of the early '90s, and everybody's kind of laughing and giggling at him, and this one dude comes up and slaps Barbie on the ass. And she turns around and decks him, and the next scene is that they're at the police station because they got arrested because she assaulted somebody. Um, it was funny, and not to, and this sucks to even say as a comic and stuff, but sometimes like I did not buy the motivation of why the guy would do that because in the quote unquote real world, when guys who actually aren't tropes of something you saw like on a PSA, a guy that would going up to a girl who's right next to her boyfriend, also in public where there's a bunch of other dudes around, which guys would, if dudes saw that happen, there's a good chance they would get the shit and went up and just like slapped a girl. There's going to be some dude, I don't care whether he's some big macho guy or even some nerdy guy, somebody's going to be like, what the fuck did you just do? What the hell? And there would be some type of violence that goes along with that. So that didn't quite make sense to me. Had it been maybe somebody who was drunk and just being an obnoxious jerk, that would have made more sense to me, as opposed to some young dude that was just like right on, bam, and just does it just to think that it was funny like that. That I don't know, that didn't quite make sense to me. All the men who work in the Mattel things, they have no character or backbone or anything at all. They're just kind of placeholders. Um, so that was just kind of weird to me. Now, granted, when they're telling a specific story, right? And when you're telling a story, let's say like if you're going to try to tell the Star Wars story, the main character is Luke Skywalker, Princess Leia, the primary characters, Han Solo and all this stuff. Not everybody has time to go into the thoughts and motivation and flesh out the characters of everybody in the cantina. That leave that for the fan fiction. You know what I mean? Nobody's gonna go into the depth and character of every stormtrooper and what their motivation is. So I get that not every man in the scene is going to get their moment in the sun. Not that makes sense to me. It was just it was weird. I expected to see that with the Kens, not so much with the other ones, but it's not like it offended me. It was just one of those things that I kind of noticed. Will Ferrell does a good job, but I wasn't sure as to why his character was involved with the story as much as it was. Well, Will Ferrell's always good. He's always going to be funny, right? And the weird thing is, it's like they needed a villain of the patriarchy who only cares about money and like some capitalist greedy dude, but he doesn't really come off as evil. He just doesn't. There's like not really like an evil villain of this. So like some of the motivations, like they were going to go in one direction, and then they decided like just they didn't. So they're pursuing like Mattel corporate guys who were going to get Barbie or doing whatever. It's never quite sure the reason why they're doing what they're doing. They kind of allude to something that happened earlier, like 10 years ago or something, but it doesn't quite make sense. Maybe that was going to be one of the major plot points at one point, but then it got kind of rewritten to the point where they didn't write it out of the story, but they never expanded upon it. So it's not enough to make you hate the movie or anything like that, guys. It was just something that I thought was really weird. Uh, the ending's kind of a mixed bag, to be honest with you. It comes across well, but parts of it seem kind of out of place. And what I like about that is that like my wife and I were talking about this, that I think it's great when I see one thing and she sees something completely different, or not completely, just different the way that I see it, just because, she's a girl, I'm a guy. She's going to see things and notice things that I'm not going to notice, vice versa. You know what I mean? So I thought that was, it was weird. So, um, I was going to say spoiler, but Barbies get the world back. Like, it's the end of the movie and stuff. And the Kens discover a sense of autonomy, which is cool. But the thought of return any type of equality between the Kens and the Barbies, it's really not. It doesn't enter the picture whatsoever. It's kind of like the Kens go back to being extensions of Barbie, but they get to kind of find out that they could be their own person. Um, like there is this. There's some pretty emotional scenes from Ryan Gosling, and to me, I thought it was really really powerful, and for what the movie is, and it's, how do I put this? It's kind of tough to watch for me, just because I've identified so much in my younger days, and the one of the things, if any young man gets out of the story and out of this movie, is that like Ken's whole happiness, and I've mentioned this many times before, is that it depends on Barbie, and he feels miserable because Barbie does not feel the same way about him. All right, and rather than him constantly trying to change or do whatever, or just even hating the whole world because he feels like it's unfair, he discovers that he could be Ken. He doesn't have to be Ken on Barbie. He could just be Ken. And that's something that I kind of wish that I would have learned a long time ago, as somebody who was always trying to find validation of who, or any type of self-worth, only if whoever I was interested or somebody that I was dating actually felt that way about me. And when it came to like breakups and stuff, especially in my 20s, man, I did not handle that shit well at all. And I did not know, and this is because I didn't have at that time I didn't have a father figure to teach me this. Is that if you're so obsessed with, and your happiness depends on somebody loving you, the only way that you could ever stop that hurt from happening is that you have to love you the way that you want somebody else to love you. It's like you first. You got to show that you care about you first, and that could have many different things. That could mean, hey man, do you take care of yourself? What kind of food do you eat? Do you exercise? What is it that you want to do? Have you always wanted it, like, like, let's say if you always wanted to learn how to play the piano, like, are you taking lessons? Have you even bought a keyboard? What have you done to actually help you show that you care about you? And I know this from experiences. When you do start doing that, life becomes way more fulfilling, and you don't feel like the need to listen to The Cure's "Pictures of You" on repeat while you cry into the night. So, and or I've heard from somebody. So, let's see. So either way, it was weird. Like my wife, she felt like she felt kind of weird, or what she didn't like is that there wasn't a sense of equality that ends up in Barbie world. It's kind of like we go back to, we'll give you a little tiny bit of, you could be like a lower member of the Supreme Court or something like that, but we're not going to give you any power. And that's always kind of weird. I don't know if that's like a postmodernist thing where everything is based on power, and that's not. I don't think that's the healthiest way to go. That's man, that's a whole other podcast. Let's see. Lastly, the way the Barbies get the world back is it's kind of it's not shitty, but it's not good either. Um, they basically like emotionally manipulate the Kents, which was kind of maybe that hit a little close to me, which I thought that was kind of shitty, to be honest with you. Um, it's like it's a plan that works as long as you don't see Kens as actual people, which they don't because Kens are Kens, they're dolls, and Barbies aren't people, they're dolls. So it kind of makes sense, but it was just one of those things where I'm like, huh, which I don't know if that was necessarily by design, but it makes for a really good conversation. I'm curious to see what you guys think about this. Uh, in the end, I think the movie left me with a lot to think about. I think that there are some missed opportunities for the audience to feel connected. Like, there's this great speech or monologue that America Ferrera has, and how talking about, and I'm probably going to butcher this, so please, if anybody's watching this and stuff, I'm not trying to diminish it anyways, but she's talking about how much it sucks to try to be like you need to be pretty, but you can't be too pretty because otherwise you're going to make somebody else feel bad, or you have to be assertive but you can't point something out because you might be considered a bitch or emotional, or you have to be a leader and you have to listen to other people what they're saying, but at the same time you got to be really careful about hurting their feelings so that way they don't feel like they're included. And there's all these things that she's talking about, right? And I saw a clip of this 2 days ago, and I'm like, geez, what's this going to be about? But I'm like, let's wait to see what the context of the story is. And one of the things that I thought that was kind of interesting is after that speech was given, I thought to myself, I'm like, I know what you mean. It is tough. You can't like it's. I think that's something that doesn't really always get explored, and it's kind of weird. It's hard to bring it up because I don't want to diminish what women go through. But guys can't go around being the same way either. There are dudes who actually do act like that, and guess what? We don't like those fuckers either. We don't. A guy that's going to be super aggro and try to dominate everybody, we don't want to follow him. There's guys that will. I'm not one of them. People who are really manipulative, or somebody that goes out of the way to make somebody else feel shitty, just so that way they can feel better, or a bully. That's freaking tough. I've been in leadership positions in jobs in my life where I do have to listen to, like, it's tough being in charge. Like I said, not to take anything away from the female experience, but just being in charge in general, being an adult in general, being responsible in general is fucking hard. Being human is not easy. Regardless of what they see in the movies and stuff, is that there's a lot of things that go involved in as far as decision makings and how we treat people and how we react to people and all these other things. And I thought that speech that could have been a moment where, like, hey, you're not alone in feeling this. There's a lot of us that feel the same way too. A lot of guys that feel the same way too. And not to say that, like, it could be a way to find some middle ground, so that way we could kind of move forward as adults in this new reality, this new world that we live in. Like, keep in mind, guys, the way that the social structures and everything works, not just with race, but even with sex between men and women, and that's not excluding everything else and stuff. This is relatively new. You know what I mean? Like, a lot of shit changed with the way the technology started building back in the early 19th century. It changed even more after World War II, and all the different things. Like, this is pretty chaotic if you think about how stagnant gender relations were before all that, and how vastly different that they are now. That's a really big change. There's a lot of new things that we have to navigate. Um, so either way, like I said, I felt that was kind of like a missed opportunity. Let's see. I think there's like all right. So overall, like I said, I think it was a really good film. I think it's worth watching in the movie theater, even though if you're going to wait for a streaming thing, there's nothing that visually. It's not like Mission Impossible or Top Gun or anything with Tom Cruise. Really, let's be honest. I think if you're wanting to find a kids movie to take your kids, I mean, if you haven't seen it already, the Super Mario Brother movie I thought was really good. The Dungeons and Dragons, if you got slightly older kids, that movie I thought was pretty good. I know those things came out a couple of months ago, but that's just my thoughts. I'm trying to watch other films. I'm trying to watch films again, just in general, just because I forgot how much I really missed movies and how much I really love getting lost in the film. And I think this was a good film. I think if you're an older person or something like that, if you really try to, if you understand, like as a dude, as a bro, if you don't look at this movie like it's an attack on your whole sense of being, which is it's kind of silly, but if you don't look at it that way, just try to look at it as a piece of art, as just as a piece of cinema that's trying to show you something that maybe you probably never thought about. I think you're really, really going to enjoy it. Like I said, it's not perfect. I think if you're a dude who watches this film and you didn't like it, leave a. See, I'm going to post this on YouTube, and I'm also going to post this on Rumble, at least the video of it. If you guys have your thoughts or any comments and stuff like that, give me follow me on either one of those things. This Disjointed Pod, I think, is going to be the same name on either one of those. Definitely check that out. I would like to hear what your thoughts are. I'd like to hear what the thoughts are for all of my lady friends and what they thought about this film. Um, I don't know. It's the movie did what I think it was supposed to do, and that's be able to start a lot of conversations and stuff. So, um, thank you for all the people who have made that, and I thank you guys for listening. I should have some new episodes coming up, not only just for the Disjointed podcast. I'm trying to get some different types of guests, but hopefully Thor Markey and I will get back on doing the Disjointed Food Biz podcast, which is about the restaurant industry. And of course, if you just want to hear me talk with my best friend or close friend, or yeah, I would say best friend, Jake Hamill, you can check out the We Talkin' podcast that I also have. All that stuff is all Disjointed Productions, and we're on everywhere, man. We're on Spotify, we're on Spreaker, we're on iHeart, and yeah, I think that's it, man. Thanks so much for tuning in, guys, and y'all have a great week.